So how does it affect a person in everyday life? Because our body is constantly releasing dopamine, like the little things we do. Seeing someone walk down the street, just watching, observing people, like sitting down and people watching, can release dopamine. Having a chat with a friend, that's like a primary way of releasing dopamine, like spending time with loved ones. All these little things, even sitting quietly in nature can release dopamine. And that's the way it is for the typical person. So let's say that one is working a desk job, like a receptionist sort of boring desk job. The typical person would, they might find it not very interesting, not very fulfilling. But people walk by and they like have small chats with them, and every so often the phone rings, and that's enough. I mean, it's not very fulfilling life, they might think, but it's enough to get by. When I first entered the workforce, I did a number of office jobs, and I noticed that when I was on those really boring jobs, after about 2 weeks, I would become suicidal, literally suicidal. I thought it was odd, but I knew it was because I was like my mind I would say that my mind is crashing in on me because I was just sitting there completely unstimulated, and I would go from, okay, I'm here, okay, I know what I'm doing now, okay, nothing else is changing, okay, I'm starting to feel depressed, okay, now I'm suicidal. So that's kind of an extreme example of a sensation seeker in a typical boring sort of situation. But it is extreme. But there are other ways it can affect you in sort of a practical life. So, or it affected myself, I should say. So like I said, there are a bunch of things that go on in life that release dopamine. For myself, not all those things register as 0 on my dopamine scale. So for just to kind of keep myself level, I have had to do a lot of things. I've had to constantly stimulate myself in terms of my brain. So throughout my life, I have lived in 8 or 9 different cities, 3 different countries. I have made short films and feature-length film, and the feature-length film I made went on and became the first ever experimental film to get theatrical distribution, and I have gone on adventure trips, and I have worked professionally as an actor and a director and a producer and an editor for companies like Disney and like Universal Games, and I have, as an author, published over 100 stories, and I've done over 100 YouTube videos in 9 months, and on and on. I helped my touch rugby team win the national championship 2 years ago, and I developed this extremely complex piece of software for self-publishing authors. I've done a tremendous amount of stuff, and luckily I've done a lot of it successfully. I've started 3, 4, 5 companies, but I've done all those things because I constantly need something occupying my mind. Otherwise, I fall to a point of depression. I get really bored and I start sinking to that point of depression. And again, it's not because of anything sort of special about me, except for the fact that I am just looking for that same sort of feeling that everyone gets in normal life just by walking around and having friends and all that stuff. I'm looking to get that same level, but for me to get that same level, because of my lower dopamine receptors, I have to do much more complex, thrilling things. So the result has been that I have this incredible resume of a life, and I'm super proud of it, and people respect me a great deal because of it, and all this stuff. But everything, when life gives you something, it takes something away. The problem that I saw in my life was that I have never been in a long-term relationship, ever. I've had 6-month-long relationships, and even those relationships would not look like your typical relationship would look. Because, I need to constantly be stimulated. I drop below that threshold of normal very easily. So when I meet someone, here's the process of love. It's been studied. The neurochemical process of love. you see someone that intrigues you. Seeing them alone releases dopamine in your brain. That causes you to go over and try and make something happen with them in terms of a relationship. So you're willing to, because just talking to them or just looking at them releases all of this like an intense amount of dopamine, you're willing to put up with a lot of stuff. You're willing to like drive, let's say they live 45 minutes away, you will drive to them. You will put up with their crap. You will do all these things just because talking to them, being with them, holding their hand releases all this dopamine as you basically become addicted to them. And then there's the sex. Sex releases is one of the biggest releases of dopamine. So having sex with them just releases this huge rush of dopamine, and you want to have sex with them again and again and again. And that is the love process. And eventually the dopamine goes down, but there's another chemical that replaces it, which is for long-term connection. And then that's love. That is the science of love. Because I'm a sensation seeker and I have an issue with dopamine, all of that, all those intense feelings that the typical person feels is down a scale. So I am not extremely thrilled when I meet someone new. It's better than not, but it's not the same as everyone else. And my interest in them is much shorter because, you know, driving a long distance, you know, there's the weight of the thrill of the dopamine that you get from seeing them, and then the downside is driving the long distance. Well, you know, the thrill is not that high for me, so there are a lot of things that come into play that kind of make me lose my interest very quickly. And then there's the sex. The first time it's great. Second time, you know, it's okay. And then if I have it a third time, then that person's super special, and you can't expect anything after that. It's simply because I just don't have the same sensations as everyone else, and that is one of the experiences of a sensation seeker. And then there's a negative side effect where many sensation seekers have a problem with alcohol, because alcohol releases dopamine. They have a problem with food because the same thing is true with food. They become gambleaholics because the rush of winning is strong. They have a problem with sexaholics. And then there's all the other stuff. So my particular thing is, you know, I have that great resume of a life. I've never been in a long-term relationship, the same reasons I have the great resume of a life. And, you know, I have to do all these like different job stuff just to stay level, normal. But in order to like feel balanced with life, like the typical person can, like if they're just living their life and then they every couple of weeks they go, oh, you know what, I gotta get out more. So they might go and have like lunch with a friend. That gives them a big rush of dopamine. Well, obviously a rush with a friend for a sensation seeker is not the same thing, it's much lower. So, you know, in the same intervals, a sensation seeker has to have some sort of big thing to make them feel kind of level. For me, that was sex. It was novel sex. So I shouldn't be surprised because I do make my living as an erotic romance author. So every so like a certain time period, I would have to have a novel sexual experience in order to make myself feel level. And that is the real life of being a sensation seeker. There can be extreme positives, but at the same time, it takes something away. And I remember seeing a study published where there was a group who were researching, they were looking for sensation seekers and non-sensation seekers to run some tests on. And one of the observations they made that every single sensation seeker that they had in their study had been divorced or is divorced. That's a hell of a trade-off, you know what I'm saying? So recently I decided that the trade-off, even though I loved all the things, how productive my life is, how much I've been able to accomplish, the trade-off is too much. So I then focused my mind on how I could possibly solve this, and I think I've come up with a way that reduces the effect of sensation seeking, meaning it solves the problem of the dopamine problem. And if you want to check that out, I'm making a new video of that, and you can probably click on a link that's probably above and go to that video. But that is what a sensation seeker is and how an example of how it affects me. And if it's something that you can recognize in yourself, please put in the comment section below. Otherwise, like the video and check out some of my other videos on the topic. Till then, I'll talk to you sometime soon. Bye.